Good afternoon. Welcome to the Business Broadcast. I'm Nikki Larkin, and I'm here today with my colleague from Succession Planning, Nigel Elkes. Hi, Nigel.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Nikki. Thanks for the invite.
Pleasure. So today, what we're talking about is how much is your business worth, going through some valuation methods, talking a bit about the market. There's a lot to pack in. So, but we, as always, will welcome your questions and comments. I do appreciate as well that this is a very sensitive subject if you're looking at potentially looking to sell your business. So if you want to have a confidential question, I think there is a way to do it. If not, just DM us directly, and we'll either include it during the broadcast or we will contact you afterwards, because obviously some people don't want to have it signpost about that they are considering what their business may potentially worth. You can always, of course, spin it that you're looking at potentially how much businesses are worth for you to acquire. Okay, so Nigel, I can't believe it's already near February. This year has gone by so quickly. So let me just turn my phone off. I hadn't already turned it off. It's gone by so quickly because I'm seeing that the market is really, really active. Just what is your impression of the beginning of 23 for market activity? Because market activity, of course, influences actual value of businesses. So what are you seeing, Nigel?
Absolutely, yeah. No, thanks, Nikki. I mean, as always, in total honesty, it's sector dependent. We're with our latest tech company, for example, managed service provider, we're nearly at 100 inquiries, which Whoa. Then, yeah, I mean, it's about, and it's also the management of those and the building on, and from there, obviously, we've got to compile the shortlist and make sure everybody gets the information and everything. So in fairness, that's been very busy, and there's other sectors that are equally not quite 100 inquiries, but certainly not far behind. The accountancy sector, that's very busy.
Consolidation in that sector.
There's loads, and so other sectors this year, sort of creative agencies, and there's a lot of interest within those, and some big players. We've got one going through whereby it's an £8 million creative agency, very profitable, very well run, being acquired by a £90 million group. And so some of what we're seeing is it's not the normal sort of the size of some of the deals, and the buyers are considerably bigger than we'd normally expect. What we'd normally expect is a company 4 to 5 times the size buying them. So it's meaningful to the purchaser. It's a significant amount of turnover, and equally it's sort of remuneration for the time that's spent on the deal. Whereas, say a company's 100 million and they're buying a £10 million company, it's kind of 10% is great, but it's not a world beater sort of on the figures. So generally it's 4 to 5 times that we'd sort of see. But yeah, we're active in those sectors. There is a lot of activity. Some probably in some areas it probably is suppressed with sort of interest rates and bits, but I think you then just have to up your
some of them.
Yeah, you just got to up your we have to up our marketing if it is in a sort of sector that isn't as busy, and that's how we sort of tackle it. So but yeah, very busy, Nikki. Sorry, long answer, but yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, so it's definitely looking like a good time for selling if you're ready to sell, because it's got to be right for you, because you can only sell your business once. So it is a good time at the moment. I would just point out as well, because there's been so much speculation that when there is a government change in under 2 years now, it's going to be, it's likely that capital gains tax would go up. So, you know, a lot of business owners are weighing up whether they should sell before then and pay less tax on the capital gain, or wait until then when, you know, if they've got growth, their enterprise value is going to be higher, but actually what is the next cash position going to be once they sell? So there's lots of different calculations that people are making and things to consider. So that's what Mark's like. Super buoyant, super busy, and that's why I've got bags under my eyes and have had to do this today. So in valuation, so if we're thinking about what is your business worth, I think it's worth just going through that there are different methodologies for valuing a business, and often there's a specific method that's used in a sector. So Nigel, what's the sort of, I mean, because there are numerous ones, but what are sort of the top ones of types of valuations that you see on the deals that you participate in?
Yeah, I mean, on the top line, Nikki, you know, people would base valuation of a business on revenue, future cash flows, a multiple of the EBITDA, balance sheet value, maybe plus some earn out depending on the sector, or balance sheet value depending on where the businesses sit and what their you know what their profitability is, and also you know their stress level. And so they're the four main ones, really.
Yeah. Indeed. So you've got to, if you sit back a moment, what the buyer is trying to do, they've got to make money out of the deal. So whatever they're paying, they've got to make sure that they can get that money back of the actual layout and any cost, you know, whether it's opportunity cost of that money or the actual financing costs of tying up that money in the purchase. So I always try and, when I'm looking at, if I'm on the other side, because sometimes I'm representing the buyers, and so I'm looking at whether it's the right amount or not, and I do a lot of valuations myself, is I'm usually thinking about, is my client, the buyer, are they going to make their money back within 3 to 5 years? Now, there's two ways they can make their money back. Either from the profits from that business, which can get that money back, or the value, their enterprise value of their new group has increased, so that when they sell, they will have been able to cover the cost of that acquisition. So I just want to re-emphasize those basics, because sometimes when people may get a little bit carried away on multiples and things, you've still got to have a reality check of, okay, but how is the buyer going to make that money back in 3 to 5 years? You know, so you do have to look at that. So I'm just going to spend I could spend the whole afternoon on the details of these, but you don't want to hear that. I'm just going to put a little bit of substance onto the 4 different methods. So on the revenue multiples, that's often for perhaps consultancy businesses, perhaps annualized revenue type businesses, perhaps like, you know, estate agent lettings businesses. They often are valued on at least 1 times multiple of their revenue. So it's quite simple methodology, because the acquiring companies often got the processes in place, they've got the people, they've got the structure, and so they're just looking at increasing their market share. The second one, which is I would say is the more complicated and time-consuming method, is the future net cash flows. So that is very much a method that is used if it's an early stage business, if you are looking at raising investment because you're still developing the products, or it is just early. It's maybe very a development intensive business such as perhaps AI, which if you've got AI in the title of your name, you're going to be looking hopefully at a really good value, because everyone's excited about that area. As an aside, I remember 30 years ago, I went on a course in Warwick University on AI. They were trying to encourage women going into the tech sector. Probably was it was actually 30 years ago this year that I went on that course.
Wow.
Anyway, but yes, but when now AI is really coming into its own. Anyway, future net cash flow. So that's exciting. That's often early stage businesses. Probably the most common one for the types of businesses that we look at are the sort of the SMEs that are established, practically going 10 to 15 years, is the EBITDA multiples. Nigel, you've still got a little bit of background, so I'll probably just switch it on and off on the next one. Oh,
what am I doing?
Yeah, just put on your mute and then unmute it when you speak, just because there's a little bit of background on your microphone. I think we need to clean your microphone off or something or other. I have to have a look at that. Anyway, so EBITDA multiples. So that's essentially, it's just wash away same profits, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, and you're just looking at how many multiples of your profit its business is worth. And that is a huge range depending on sector, which we'll go into in a moment. The fourth one, which Nigel mentioned, is balance sheet. Because the absolute minimum that your business should be worth is your balance sheet amount, so your net assets. So if it was a really stressed business, it was probably only worth your balance sheet number. Might be even worth less than that if there's a huge amount of working capital required to be going. However, if it is just perhaps in a dying sector, it's probably going to be or declining sector, let's be a bit more polite, a balance sheet amount plus a modest amount, but in an earn-out, so it can risk higher. Those are things. So going back to the EBITDA multiple, because that's the one that we see most in the SME space. Nigel, people get very excited about what you adjusted, how you adjust the EBITDA figure that is then used for the multiples. What sort of things do you see that get adjusted for that calculation?
There's several things. Probably the most common one is potentially owners or directors' salaries, whereby some's been taken out by a dividend. They may have a low salary that then goes through on the accounts, and it needs to be adjusted to a realistic market rate. And I think when we're sort of preparing a business for sale, there's no point going in on thinking, oh, I'll pay myself a low salary and, some of the family members in the business or whatever it may be to then get a higher profit, to get a higher EBITDA, because any buyer will really just look at what the market rate is and normalize that figure. But some of the things, if there's any exceptional costs that have gone through in an accounting period, they need to be sort of adjusted accordingly. I think any sort of expenditure that isn't focused on actually running the business, and it may be that you've tried, you kind of sort of tried. Sorry, your banner put me off then, Nikki. I do apologise. No, you're fine. But basically, it's kind of adjusting so for the buyer that they're paying exactly what the business is worth. And so if you have spent on a separate department or doing research or things like that where they're sort of one-off projects, those would generally be added back and like that, just to sort of get a succinct figure of what that business will produce. To be honest, once the owners have moved out of the business and it's in the hands of the new ownership. So, that's how they base those adjustments. So I think also with the different multiples, and I don't know if we're going on to that, are we, Nikki, or is that, are you on mute?
Yes, sorry. Yes, we're going to cover that in a moment once we've finished all the different adjustments that can happen.
Great. Okay. So I think generally it's a matter of running through the P&L and seeing what's in there, making sure they're all costs and contributions that then go to running the business. And I think the same goes for the sales line. You know, we can't be putting through for any rental or any other income that may not be part of that business and part of the business going forward. So it's just generally a tidying up process to get to that final EBITDA figure. And some of that is a negotiation point. So for example, you know, an MD's salary to run a 2, 3, 4 million pound business, what is the market rate and what are they doing? So some of it does actually start to drill down and to what the owners contribute to the business. And that is then part of just some of the due diligence, some of then the transition period to ensure that. And obviously any business owner really wants to be sort of handing over client relationships and operational duties to hopefully his leadership team or her leadership team, so they can move on from the business seamlessly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other key thing is what we typically do as well in succession planning is we don't lead what those adjustments should be, because for each buyer those adjustments will be different. So for example, in an MSP practice, when the buyer will have different buying power for different products, so some will be able to get much better discounts when they're buying certain things, for example Microsoft 365 licenses or whatever else it might be, compared to perhaps another potential buyer. So that's why we present what the EBITDA is, we give detail of all the different costs in there, but it is for the buyer to make their own judgment of what those the adjusted EBITDA is. And that does therefore contribute to one of the reasons of why different buyers do value the businesses differently. And we see massive differences, and sometimes they can be double or even more the difference between one buyer might offer say 3 million, another buyer might offer 6 million. There's just such a massive difference because with a business it is worth different things to different buyers.
And I think it's fair to say that, you know, in any of our launch meetings when taking on an engagement, we'd obviously investigate all those elements and then really target our marketing accordingly, so we know we're hitting a buyer pool where the particular business we're marketing is worth a lot more to them than maybe somebody of a similar size or in a different sector or something like that. And I think that makes it clearer from the point of view of who will the interested parties be, because if there's significant benefits because they're a larger company within the same sector and economies of scale and better buying power, there's actually a clear monetary value that everybody can identify who's connected with the deal.
Yeah. So what time? I told you there's so much to pack into this. What I'm just going to go through next is the different things that can affect the multiple. So I was listening for a very specific seminar yesterday regarding the sale of recruitment firms to the corporate finance specialist who's sold hundreds of recruitment firms on the Mike Ames show yesterday. And he was talking and demonstrating on, he's obviously an expert in that particular sector. And even though that's one sector, the multiple can change anything from just a few on the multiple up to double digits, you know, and it's loads of different things can affect it. And that is also relevant for, you know, the sectors that we tend to concentrate on as well. So for example, so I'm going to go through, so for example, we do a lot in the tech space, whether it's MSP firms, security firms, so cybersecurity, or whatever else it may be, you know, app development. So what I just wanted to go through the different things that could potentially affect what the multiple is. And of course, you want to have, as the seller, you want to have a high multiple as possible. So the things that can affect it: sector. So we're going to talk about the technology side for now. Technology, you typically will see absolute minimum 4 multiple usually, but again, depending on the technology and perhaps their IP, can potentially go into double digits. With MSPs, you know, you typically would go 4 to 7. The bigger the MSP, the higher you can get. So then you can be talking about 7 to even 10, but that's in exceptional circumstances. So, so the sector, then you've got the quality of the clients. Now, the quality of the clients are, you know, so for example, if you've got a business that has 0 bad debt from your clients, because they are absolutely beautiful, wonderful, AA credit-worthy clients, fantastic. So that helps it, and it also the size of the client. So you want to make sure that you've got a nice spread of clients. You never ever want to be dependent upon one client. So if you've got clients that, even if they're worth, you know, 5% of your revenue, that's quite a chunk of your revenue if that disappeared. So it's looking at the spread of clients, it's looking at the size of clients. Now, the reason why I'm saying about the size, if it's a small client, there's only going to be so, and it's not a fast growing one, it's just it's going to stay forever, that client. There's not a lot more extra for growth opportunities or even perhaps selling. What buyers often like is the medium-sized clients, because those are the ones that can have additional services sold to them. Hopefully, they've also got a little growth potential. So, for example, we've got an MSP firm at the moment. They have, because of Oxfordshire, they've got a lot of biotech, pharmaceutical, that kind of client. That's a huge growth industry. So you might have somebody taking on perhaps 50 seats, quite easily have 200 seats in 2 years. So, you know, that's huge growth just within that same client. Plus, they're extremely well funded. So, you know, it's all really good and they're happy to splash out their cash.
I think just to add in there, Nikki, I think also it's obviously the concentration of clients, but also to highlight the longevity. You're right about the sectors, and I think that's very good. And where they are, it's really looking for any buyer that may look to cross-sell into those particular clients and everything. And certainly the top tier ones are harder sometimes points of entry. So some of that can be beneficial because then they're in the framework or they're on the approved supplier list. But equally, it can be hard nuts to crack if for that sector they can't get in. So it's a kind of double-edged sword, as you rightly say, at the top end of clients. And it's that middle rump of clients that is particularly where a particular interest, because generally that's where the opportunities are. But I think for anybody listening, you know, your clients are your clients, and you don't want to suddenly change your client base or think, oh no, we've got to do this, because it's not. And I think with any of the preparation for sales, it's not to shoehorn anything in, it's just to sort of guide, have the conversation, and for us to then sort of say, this will help you multiple, or this would help you multiple. And so it doesn't have, and it's just really tweaking it so it's presented in the best way to maximize the price and get the best value for anybody. So yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely. There's, I mean, there is a huge amount of different things that could affect it. I'm just going to focus on two more before we sort of summarize where we are. So the next thing that can really improve your multiple is demonstrating that you've got a great pipeline and also how that pipeline works. So if you've got a really good mechanism for bringing in new inquiries, whether it's SEO or the way that you specifically do your networking or client referrals or whatever it is, you know, if you can demonstrate that that is showing that is bringing in new business year on year, that is really powerful and that can really push up your multiple. Oh, I'm ending on a negative one, so I might have to think of another good one to put after this. A thing that can depress your multiple is if your profits are really lean. So not only is your actual EBITDA number that you're being used going to be smaller, if there's a huge risk, you know, if your business is operating on very small margins, the multiple is going to be reduced because it's just then considered a riskier business. So I don't think I've been through employees, have I? Have I been through employees? Right. So I'm talking about positive now. So
very good one.
Yes, employees. Now, a lot of you'll have seen over, you know, so perhaps the last 20, 30 years, a lot of businesses have tried to move more to a contractor or an offshore type model, which is great because that often can improve profits. It can also mean that you can tap in and out for different demand levels. However, especially if you're, say, for example, a services business, rather than perhaps a product business, if you have very few of your staff, because you've got to be careful what you call them, you know, from tax perspectives and things, but if not many of the people that are critical to your business are employees and more of them are contractors, that is going to depress your multiples. Now, that's been great because everyone's loved it previously for the tax advantages and everything else, but from a buyer perspective, they will perceive an employee that's been with the business for a long time, they will value that much more. They won't value the ones that are the contractors. So really do think about your employee relationships. They will be looking at the retention of your employees, the quality of the employees, and the key employees, because that's what they always look at. They ask, who has the relationship with the clients? So if your people that have got the relationship with your clients are contractors, the buyer is going to potentially worry and depress your multiple. So do look and make sure you tie in your key people on employee contracts so that or even if it's more substantial contract, if you can't get them on to so that increases the value. So
I think what I was just going to say, I think just to add in there, and it puts both your previous points together, sometimes a business might be a slightly depressed EBITDA, but a good, strong team, people want to buy expertise and they're looking for expertise, especially over the last few years where the market's been quite tricky, the labour market and finding people, recruiting people and everything. So a lot of purchases have happened because of that reason. So there's always different rationale for buying it, but sometimes it's a team that you've developed and got, and the more secure they are in their contracts, as Nikki just said, the better, because it's just more guaranteed, and that's what the buyer is looking for.
Absolutely. The skill, I completely echo that. The skill shortage, that is one of the major drivers for the tech sector consolidations, and also for example, the accountancy sector consolidations, because people are just desperate for the really good people. So if you've got good people in your team, that's going to increase your value. So we've been through a huge amount there. You might be saying, well, what is now my business valued? Because I think we've demonstrated there are so many different things can affect it. Nigel and myself, very happy to have a basic conversation with you to give you an indication on your valuation, but hopefully we've given you enough detail in there so you can be measuring to a certain extent yourself to seeing where your valuation may be sitting with your business. I just want to finalise today with a Mike Ames quote. So Mike, if you're watching, is on the time to be thinking about selling, time to be planning your exit. And he said this so many times to me, and he said this again yesterday. The time to be considering your exit is the day you start your company. The second best time to consider your exit is today. And that doesn't mean it's to go and put your business on the market today. Absolutely not. We want you to be maximizing your enterprise value, but to start planning, to look at all those different factors that we talked about, that will drive it. If you focus on all of those, that will then drive up your enterprise value, and therefore you'll have a bigger pot so you can then go and do whatever you want to do in your next project. Okay, I hope that was useful. Thank you,
Well
Nigel.
said. Pleasure.
Oh,
no, I just thought it's a good finish, and I wouldn't be able to top that. So well said.
We can't top the Mr. Ames. Okay, super. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I am super organised, so I can tell you what the next 3 seminars are going to be. I've just gone a blank though for next week. No, next week, really amazing speaker next week. We have got she's world-renowned, Heather Townsend, the writer of multiple books in the accountancy and solicitor sector, but she is going to be focusing upon pricing methodologies. So if you keep at the end of the month thinking, I don't understand, we did so much work, where's all the profit? It may be down to your pricing methodology. So join us next week to listen to Heather about how you can improve your pricing. Then the following week, the 10th of March, I'm going to be joined by another Townsend. I don't think they're any relation, but Paul Townsend, and he is going to be discussing how to get the best funding for your SME. He is a commercial banker of many years' experience, and I'm lucky enough to have him on my Orange team now. And also, he helps Business Board Financial Services, and he's an absolute expert. If you get funding for your business, he'll be able to find it, and he'll be able to tell you how to improve tips and likelihood for getting funding for your business, and also to be able to decrease the cost of funding for your business. So that's the 10th. The 17th, so I'm going 3 weeks in advance, I'm so organised, that week is the budget week. It's going to be Jeremy Hunt's first full budget on the 15th of March. So on the 17th of March, I'm going to focus the business board on the budget response, and it's going to be Pete Ames is going to be hosting, and either myself or one of our tax experts is going to be joining in, answering all the questions on whatever is going to change in the budget, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent for SMEs. So lots there to get that booked in your diaries. Anyway, have a lovely weekend. Thank you for your company. Thank you, Nigel.
Pleasure.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.